Remember that story about Saudi Arabia being involved in a UN Human Rights Committee, which made absolutely no sense? Saudi Arabia, one of the main places where we lack human rights, where we have huge problems around human rights, having any say in the supervision of the world when it comes to human rights. As if it couldn't get even more absurd, it has now been revealed that Ban Ki-moon, UN from the United Nations, removed Saudi Arabia from a blacklist of child killers due to a financial threat from them to defund a United Nations program. Many are calling this extortion, although I don't know that it meets the legal definition of extortion. Certainly the spirit of it is extortive. The UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon didn't name the specific source of the threat, but news reports have indicated it came directly from the Saudi government. So this is how it all worked. And this is just so insane in that it proves Saudi Arabia should be on that list. The UN in 2015 had a report called Children and Armed Conflict, and it listed the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen under parties that kill or maim children and parties that engage in attacks on schools and or hospitals. The report was based on the work of some UN researchers in Yemen. It attributed 60% of the 785 children killed and 1,168 injured to this bombing coalition, which again, Saudi Arabia led. The Saudi government made very loud objections, and Ban Ki-moon said on recently, it might have been just a few days ago, that he was revising the report to review jointly the cases and numbers cited in the text in order to reflect the highest standards of accuracy possible. That was a week ago, okay? On Thursday, late Thursday last week, he then revealed the real motivation for this revision. He said the report describes horrors no child should have to face. At the same time, I also had to face the very real prospect that millions of other children would suffer grievously if, as was suggested to me, countries would defund UN programs. Saudi Arabia is one of the UN's largest donors in the Middle East. They give hundreds of millions of dollars a year to UN food programs in Syria and Iraq, and to programs that would help children and prevent the killing of children. Ban Ki-moon said that the decision was one of the most painful and difficult decisions he has had to make. Now, what has Saudi Arabia said about this? Saudi ambassador to the UN, Abdallah al-Moalimi, I believe is the right pronunciation, he held a press conference and said, "We didn't use threats, but such listing will obviously have an impact on our relations with the UN." And then going on to say, this is completely hilarious, "It is not in our style. It is not in our genes. It is not in our culture to use threats and intimidation." Hard to get through that without laughing. This is a country with a culture, a regime, and a specific sect of the Muslim faith, which are built upon us versus them conflict and violence and intimidation and threats. Look at what happens when you say you're thinking of leaving the faith if you want to see threats. And they say it's not in their style to use threats and intimidation. Now, here is the horrific and depraved irony of this. Saudi Arabia was so desperate to be removed from a list of child killers that they threatened to stop funding programs that protect children, which, if withheld by Saudi Arabia, could lead to the death of more children, which would confirm that they deserve to be on the list, which they are using threats to be removed from. I mean, the absurdity of this is insane.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to national relations,
yeah,
I suppose Saudi Arabia is usually right when they say, we don't really issue threats. I mean, maybe they're talking about violence, but it's all money, right? It's always money, and they use money to influence anything and everything. I mean, look at our allegiance with them.
Well, let's not pretend Saudi Arabia is the only one using the threat of withheld funds for the UN, right? The U.S. has often threatened to pull funding when the UN acts in a way the U.S. doesn't like. Not extortion per se, as I said, but very clear that Saudi Arabia should absolutely be on the list.